Hello and welcome to Industry Insights, where we get first-hand insight into the career journey of inspiring female leaders in consulting and answer all your burning questions. This episode will be about engineering consulting. Today, we're joined by UNSW alumni, Rebecca Fitzgerald. Rebecca completed a bachelor's degree in engineering and commerce, majoring in renewable energy engineering and accounting and a minor in finance, and she now works at WSP, which is a global consulting firm specializing in buildings and infrastructure consulting. Rebecca has also worked as an accountant at KPMG, a sustainability consultant, and now is the mechanical team leader for the properties team at WSP. In 2018, she was named the Property Council of Australia Future Leader of the Year. She's a twin mum, passionate about creating sustainable cities for our children. She's an energetic and creative thinker, and also a ceramist by night. Wow, that sounds amazing, Rebecca. So before we get into the questions, would you like to briefly introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, I think you summed it up. It does sound funny when someone introduces you like that. It sounds very, like I've done a lot, I suppose. I still feel like I'm young-minded and still trying to make it, but it does sound very impressive, Christine. But yeah, you did sum it up. I'm an engineer at heart. I've dabbled in accounting. I work for a big corporation within the property space, so I basically design buildings. And I have lots of extracurricular and other things that I love to do, including pottery. And I do a bit of martial arts. I used to play touch football. I love going to the gym. Before I had kids, I used to travel lots. Before COVID, I used to travel lots, actually. Now it's just exploring New South Wales, I suppose, in a different way with my kids. I have a beautiful boy and a beautiful girl that are 2 minutes apart. And
wow, yeah.
My life very busy at the moment.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And would love to even talk a bit more about your career and exactly. So the first question that I have is, what does a typical day look like in your profession? Do you meet a lot of people, go on site often, or is it more paperwork and office based?
It's hard because there's my job before COVID and then there's my job now, which is slightly different to what it used to be. So I'll try and touch on both. But before it was very mixed. A lot of face-to-face meetings with our clients and design teams, including architects and other engineers, to design buildings. We also had maybe 20 to 30% of site visits, which would be going out to site to see how our buildings were being created during the construction phase. And then the rest of it was at our desk working in teams to solve problems, do some engineering, and get drawings and reports done. I guess what's changed since COVID is the meeting face-to-face element. So we still have those meetings, but they're all on Zoom, Teams, phone calls. So I guess these days a lot of my time is spent at my computer because of COVID. But hopefully it's bound to change in the next 12 months again when meeting face-to-face becomes more acceptable. Yeah. I love that part.
Yeah, it sounds like, I guess it's a really good mix of both the client interaction and also getting a bit of that office work from time to time as well.
Hopefully, yeah, great.
Get back to normal.
Slowly.
Yeah, awesome. So the next question I have is, as a current engineering team lead, how is your commerce degree as an accountant and completing a bachelor relevant to the work that you do nowadays? So
it's quite funny because I thought that they'd be completely separate. Yeah. Because engineering and accounting, or commerce rather, when you're at uni, they are very separate subjects and ways of thinking and groups of people and different buildings. Like they're completely separate in terms of uni life. But I worked in an accounting firm for 2 years, and so I got to practice the accounting side of things from my university studies. And I run projects in my engineering company, so I need to look at the finances, how it's performing, how we can do things more efficiently from a financial point of view. So actually all of that learning from my commerce degree and my accounting work translated super easy. So I could speak the language that the accountants within my company spoke, and I understood all of the seemingly scary lingo that people speak when we're talking about not engineering numbers, if that makes sense. So it was definitely beneficial. And I also think that the commerce degree provided a view on how businesses should be run from an internal perspective. And that's been really useful for me as well when looking at my own engineering business, what they do well and what they could improve on, what I can influence within my team, etc.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's reassuring, I guess, I think to many to hear that the commerce degree would actually have an impact on your work as well, and you still use that, even just understanding the lingo in the background.
Yeah, it's been really helpful, surprisingly helpful, actually.
Yeah, no, that's good. So the next question we have is, what qualifications and skills do you need to work in an engineering consulting firm?
Yeah, so a tricky one, because there's the general rule and then what happens in reality. Generally, a Bachelor of Engineering.
Yeah.
Generally, a master's isn't required.
Mm-hmm.
However, there are some employees within my company that don't have an engineering degree, and that's for a variety of reasons. They've perhaps taken a different path, and maybe they've worked as a plumber for 5 or 10 or however many years, and then they want to stop working on the tools, and they want to go earlier into the design process and start designing things. So they've decided they want to become a hydraulic engineer, for example, but they don't have an engineering degree.
Mm-hmm.
So that's completely possible. And I guess day to day, those people and the engineering equivalent
Mm-hmm.
do similar things. I guess the only thing that differentiates them is that the engineers can become chartered
Okay.
with an engineering body like Engineers Australia. Yeah. Whereas the person that took the slightly different path, who isn't an engineer, can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of work experience and projects that they're exposed to and all of that, it's essentially the same.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And we actually might ask the question about chartered engineer later as well, so
Yeah.
be quite relevant. So, and then in terms of actually just expanding on that as well, what kind of like technical skills and soft skills would you be looking at for like a career in engineering consulting?
Yeah. So the obvious ones would be just general engineering skills, and by that I mean a really good foundation of mathematics, physics, a tiny bit of chemistry.
Mm.
In my particular consulting field, thermodynamics and fluid dynamics is super important.
Okay.
Not how to do every single calculation, but a general understanding of the principles really help. We're really lucky these days because we have so much software out there that can do things for us. So we don't need to derive things from first principles anymore.
Yeah.
We just need to understand what's being done and the inputs and the outputs and what influences what.
Mm.
Yeah. And in terms of soft skills, I place equal importance on soft skills, and some may argue even more important than the engineering skills themselves sometimes, particularly as you get more experience in your career. Finding. So soft skills such as communication skills, and that's not just written, that's verbal and the all daunting presenting skills. And in the last 12 months, presenting on Zoom or Teams,
Right, yeah.
which is a whole nother skill set.
Yeah.
Presenting, super scary and stuff that people hadn't really practiced before, but I'm finding that's becoming really important. How to run meetings, chair meetings, that's really, really important, and can really influence how efficient a project's run. I think that negotiation skills and management skills are also important, and by management I mean time management and people management skills. So, yeah, a good 50-50 balance of engineering and soft skills, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then I guess coming on from that as well, these skills that you mentioned that are relevant for an engineering consulting role, what activities should undergraduates partake in to boost their knowledge and be more prepared for the future and workforce ready, for example, to develop these skills that you mentioned?
Yeah. So I feel like this is a kind of easy one in a sense. So I've seen so many undergraduate CVs come past my desk and email account, and a lot of the CVs focus so much on their academic skills. And obviously, don't get me wrong, being able to engineer and pass your uni degree is super important. However, it's kind of a given that you're an intelligent person if you're on track to finishing your university degree. So, and they're the type of people we want. But what I want to see in your CV is your personality, and so all of the activities that come with that. It could be it could be in the form of getting into societies and clubs at uni if that's your thing. But if it's not your thing, I wouldn't force it. There are other ways to do that. Show me what sports you've been playing, or what other outdoor activities you've been doing, other hobbies that you get involved in, even hints of what you do with your family, that kind of thing. Put some color onto your CV and show me your personality, I suppose. And I think most people who are looking for graduates and undergraduates would say the same. Sometimes you get hundreds of CVs come by. Yeah. They're all black and white. They're all in Word. Half of them have spelling mistakes. Oh. So it's really scary. It's really scary. But yeah, I guess just tell me what you've actually been doing during uni, and show me that you've been having a good time and exploring different things outside of your degree, or things that complement your degree. And yeah, communicate that to your prospective work employer. I think that's super important.
Yeah, no, that's so great to hear, because I feel that I guess we're almost suffocated by opportunities in Australia, and people have to choose, or people sometimes I guess they feel pressured to join certain things or be a certain way or have a certain things on their CV. But I think it's really reassuring to hear that it's actually not necessarily like you have to have tick these boxes. Like, just show yourself and be yourself on your CV.
Yeah. And if that's no club and society, but there's all of the sporting activities that you're involved in, then that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do things outside of your academic studies, and you have a certain personality that you want to showcase. And I think that's really important, because that you can't hide.
Yeah.
That will show through in the interview, and that will show through in your career. So you might as well market that.
Yeah. And I guess I might actually move on to this next question, which is sort of relevant and related to the personality skills that you talked about. So in terms of being an engineering consultant, what kind of personality traits, qualities, or characteristics lend themselves well to the job?
Yeah, this is a hard one. When you told me you were going to ask me this, I had to really think about it, because there are a lot of different personalities in their workplace, and I find that some work well because that person's good at that, and vice versa. Like, that wouldn't work for me. But things that I think really lend well to the job, reading people is a huge one. So yes, listening and hearing what they say, but also trying to actually understand what their face and body's telling you, how they're feeling at that time about that particular item, and what position they're in, what constraints they may be facing, and therefore what are they actually saying. You may hear words, but they may be saying something slightly different, and that will influence how you respond. So I think reading people is super important. Secondly, I think there's the opposite to that. So I think being able to communicate with different people. So I would naturally communicate in a certain way. I'm quite open. I'm, I guess, more energetic, and quite, I use my face and my hands a lot to talk. But if the person that I'm speaking to doesn't respond well to those kinds of things, then I need to tailor myself to get the best out of that person. So if that person's more of a quiet thinker and needs time to solve something or think about what I'm saying, I can't be in their face, for example. But I need to figure that out, because they're not going to tell you that. So there's one way, there's reading somebody, but then there's also tailoring your own reactions to that person.
Right.
And that's all day, every day. So it could be to your teammate, could be to your junior, could be to your senior, could be to your boss, then it could be to your client, it could be to the architect, or it happens all the time. But yeah, it's quite challenging. I think finally, to answer your question, another personality trait would be, and I found this particularly hard in the last 2 years because of my twins, but being able to learn to trust my team. And by trust my team, I mean wholeheartedly trust them and not try and do everything myself. And I think that when you're at uni, there's a tendency to want to do everything yourself because you're excited and you're into the thing you're studying theoretically, and you just want to get involved in everything. So I'll do it. I'll put my hand up to do it. I'll do everything. And the thing is, you have the time. It's a luxury. You may not have kids yet. You may not have other responsibilities that you need to tend to outside of uni, and so you throw yourself completely into it. And the same thing happens when you start work. You just dive. You do everything. You put your hand up. You want to just soak it all in. but at some point you can't do everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I think being able to trust people is a really big, important personality trait as well, and very much so easier said than done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I can definitely relate on that one, and it's great to hear that it's a long-term learning experience to develop these like personality traits and these skills as well.
Yeah.
It's not like a one size fits all. Yep, I've got this skill, tick it off. Yeah, it's like a lifelong sort of learning experience.
And you practice these skills at home. I mean, all of the things I mentioned, you can test out on your partner, your mum or dad. You know, if somebody offers to do something for you to make your life easier, even though you think you could do it better or you want to do it, letting go of that thing, letting that person cook dinner even though you cook it better or whatever is harder than it sounds.
Yeah.
But stepping back from that is a skill in itself, and that can translate to the workforce 100%.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, awesome. And then we might, I guess, dive into more in terms of your role and what you actually do as an engineering consultant. So the next question I have is, what do you enjoy most about consulting as an engineer for buildings?
I think I was thinking about this, and I feel like my answer is extremely cliched, but very, very true. I think most engineers love engineering because they spend so much time drawing it up and problem solving and going through the design process, but then actually getting to see it built and being used is super cool. I've worked I've been involved in lots of projects, mostly in Sydney, which is also cool because I live here. And when I visit those sites afterwards, if they're public places particularly, there's just something about having contributed to that place, no matter how small, that's so rewarding. So Central Park is a good one. I was involved in a couple of the buildings there. So that's at Broadway for any of you who don't know. It's a newish precinct in the city, and it's just buzzing. Like, that area was so dead before, and now it's one of the coolest places for people to go out, just hang out at the park, or go out to dinner, or just maybe that's where they live. And it's just so cool. It's iconic. I helped to shape its life. Like, what more could you want from a job? And I can tell my kids that I helped shape that place one day, hopefully. Yeah.
That's so exciting. Yeah, it's I think especially in the design side of engineering, that's one of the most exciting things is you're the one that, you know, you could go through and like be like to that drain there, like, yep, that little drain there, like you might see just a hole in the ground, but
I drew that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's very cool.
And we talked about before being a chartered engineer, and I think a few people might actually not know what that means or what that involves. So could you provide a bit more detail on what does it mean to be a chartered engineer?
Yeah, it's a really scary sounding term, I think. It makes me sound like I have lots of grey hairs, I must admit. Well, yeah, I mean, I do have grey hairs, but it's mostly from the kids, not from engineering. But in all seriousness, so the term chartered engineer just means that I've had a couple of things. It means I've worked as an engineer for a set period of time. I think it might be 5+ years, something like that. And then it also means that I've demonstrated a wide range of skills, which they consider engineering skills. So kind of touching back to the types of skills that I was mentioning earlier in consulting, actually a lot of them are covered within the chartered engineering competencies or assessment list when they look at you. So there's the engineering skills, which include problem solving and applying your technical knowledge, reading standards, all that kind of stuff. But there's also ethics, there's project management, there's time management, there's communication. So you need to demonstrate all of those things in order to become chartered. Yeah, so it's actually, interestingly, ties really well with the consulting role.
Yeah, that's great. And I think actually it might even be like a good measure for engineering consultants who are thinking of looking at going into the field, something to strive for in terms of their skills that they want to develop in uni and then later on in the workforce.
Yeah, and being chartered is becoming more well recognised in the industry.
Okay.
historically people opted to do it if they wanted to, I don't know, just see that they tick off things, or if they wanted to become a more respected member of that industry body. But it's becoming more important from a legislative point of view, in that sign-offs are needed by engineers these days, and codes changing where more of these sign-offs are required. So people can only sign it off if you're chartered.
Oh, okay. So it's almost
becoming more important.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And it's something that's developing at the moment. So maybe you'll see it in 5 to 10 years time that engineers need to be able to do this. Queensland engineers have been required to be chartered or listed on certain lists as part of Engineers Australia for a while now, but that's kind of spreading out to other states in Australia.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great. And I think, definitely something that future engineering consultants would have to look into if they want to for the future, to prepare themselves. All right. So we're sort of nearing the end of the interview now. So to provide some general advice for students in uni, if you could go back in time, what piece of advice would you tell your younger self?
That's a hard one. I feel like when I first joined the workforce, I just wanted to be like everyone else there and all the other successful people there, or that I thought were successful. And after a few years, I realized that that's not the best way to do things, because being somebody else wouldn't work. So I think if I could go back to my 21-year-old self and say something, it would be, don't fit into the mold. If being a different person that doesn't necessarily fit the stereotypical engineering mold, if that means that you're yourself, then I think you should be that person. And it took me a few years to be myself. So I tried to damper the more kind of charismatic, energetic and smiley self that I had, and try and, I don't know, I just felt like I needed to be a bit more quiet and listen, particularly in those junior years as an engineer. But one of my mentors, and I guess now friend, he said to me in my third year, he said, a female who can engineer and who can be all of those things, so charismatic and energetic, determined, smiley, passionate, it's refreshing. So why are you hiding it? And I really love that, and I wish that I had thought of that earlier. Yeah, I mean, 3 years in, it's not too late, but I wish I didn't hide myself for a few years. And it can be extremely daunting coming into a profession where it's unfortunately very male dominant, particularly in property. And so I guess a lot of women may feel like they need to just go with the flow and see what happens. Yeah. Whereas, I don't think that's the right way. And I wish that I showed that earlier.
Yeah. I think that's really important advice, especially for our audience, because we are women in consulting.
Yeah.
So it'd be really, really relevant for females who are thinking of going into engineering but unsure about their profession to really consider. So the next question we have is, what challenges have you faced in the workforce?
I thought of two things for this. So the first one, I still find this really hard, but being noticed for the right reasons. So being a female in the engineering workforce, often you get noticed for being a female in the room. And that sounds like a cop-out, and I feel like it is a bit of a cop-out, but it happens. And I guess that's not who I want to be recognised as. I want to be recognised as the really good engineer who can communicate things well and who influences a project, not because Beck's the female who the only female in the room and said a few things once or something. I found that a really big challenge, because that happens a lot. And so almost, maybe half or more of the meetings that I walk into, I feel like that. And sometimes I remember this one time I was in a design meeting for a bid that we were doing on a stadium in Sydney, and it was to talk through some of the engineering problems that we were having at the time. And there was 20 people in the room, some engineers, some developers, some other members of the design team. I didn't even notice I was the only female. I didn't think, it doesn't cross my mind a lot. And we were workshopping something, and then one of the guys said nothing to me the whole meeting, and 3/4 of the way through the meeting he looked at me and he said, "Beck, can you get me coffee?" And I just nearly burst into tears because of the exact reason that I said. Like, I wanted to be recognised as Beck, the really standout good engineer who is a really valuable member to this project. And my heart sank. And unfortunately, like, that stuff happens. And I'm not saying that was a gender thing, but it felt like that. And I guess just remember, like, what you want to be remembered for in that project or in general, and make sure that and be prepared to face challenges like that, because it's going to happen. The other biggest challenge that's probably obvious, but it'd be managing my twins with work. So hard. So hard. I'm just so torn. I love them so much and I want to hang out with them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But unfortunately I also need to work. So throwing myself into work and all of my projects, which I used to do, is unfortunately not possible anymore. Just time constrained. So I feel like that's a challenge that all parents, stereotypically mums, because they have the maternity leave at the start, but all parents face. And it's becoming more increasingly common for it to be happening to the guys as well, which is so cool to see, because we're all sharing the same challenges and trying to solve them together. But that's been one of the second probably biggest challenge in my career so far. I'm still working through it. I have no answers for that one.
I was about to follow up with that and say, so how have you overcome these challenges? But
at the moment, I feel like back at uni and back as an engineer with no kids, I would live and plan like month to month or something. Now I just plan day to day. Be super flexible that something may change any second, and that the thing I thought I was doing at 12 o'clock may not happen anymore. And then I just have to bank on my communication skills and relationships to move things around and hope that's okay. But everyone's doing it, so it's becoming more acceptable. You need to kind of work around.
Especially with I guess a lot of people working from home these days. In the past year, it's definitely something that is a challenge to balance as well.
I mean, I see dads pushing prams around the street so much more than I used to, and I think, oh, there you go, like, that's how it feels like you're working and doing both now. Like, before you may not have needed to do that.
Exactly.
It's really changed things, but I think everyone's feeling the same challenges now, which is cool.
Exactly. And it's even, I guess, what you mentioned before as well. I know that a lot of companies now, it's paid parental leave for both caregivers as well.
And you know, I try and be extremely PC about anything to do with that. So I try and call it parental leave. It is parental leave. It's not maternity.
Exactly.
It's parental leave. And in my team alone, I think in the last, so I manage a team of 16. I think in the last 24 months, maybe 4 or 5 of them have taken 3 months off to look after their kid. Parental leave. How cool is that?
It's so good. It's so cool. It's just so good.
Like, so I've never really thought about it like that. So 5 out of 16, that's almost a third of my taken parental leave in the last 24 months.
Wow.
So I think actually all of the guys who have become fathers, so 100% of the new fathers have taken parental leave.
Wow.
So, which happens to be about a third of the team, but at one time. Very cool.
And so good to end on that happy note as well, I guess. Recognizing that there are challenges that we still definitely have to, that are still prominent and definitely have to overcome and face in the next few years, but also that the industry is supporting and moving towards the gender equality as well in the workplace.
It's very cool. It's a very exciting prospect for all of the undergraduates who are listening. We'll be entering the workforce in the next 5 to 10 years. So that's you should be excited for that.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Rebecca, for your time today. That's all the questions we have. And thank you to everyone for listening and tuning into our first episode of Industry Insights. We look forward to a number of other episodes in the future. And if you'd like future updates on that and regular updates, then definitely click interested in the event Facebook page, or keep an eye out on this section of our website as well. Thanks so much, Rebecca.
Thanks, Christine.
Thank you.